We are getting close to finishing up this beautiful composite ARF or CARF F-100 aircraft. Stunning, stunning piece of kit. We got lots of details left to do, so let's dive back in video number 8. Last video, the main focus was those drop tanks right there. We got that done. We got our tail put back on, our horizontal stabs put on, so that's all good. So lots accomplished in the last video, and we still have lots to do. So what we're gonna start off on this video is getting our fin things installed. I don't know what they're called, but we'll just call them fin things for now. I'm sure I'll get corrected in the comments down below. These things. So they go, where do they go? Somewhere like that, I think. I have to look up other pictures and stuff, but they go somewhere like that. And that's what we're gonna start off with. Once we get those on and the wings kind of 100% complete, then we'll pull the wings back off and get into the wiring and everything. So lots to do in this video, guys. We're also gonna focus on the cockpit as well too. So we'll dive into that as well. So let's get cracking. All right, so our fin things, strakes, this little bit, pretty simple to locate where it goes. On the out portion of the wing, tucks into that little corner. All the lines kind of line up nicely. And then to get the proper line, obviously you're just getting that in the right location as well too. So pretty straightforward stuff. Now, just taking a look at this, how we want to mount it. I don't want to glue those on or anything like that. First thing is, I don't think it's a good idea to leave these on when they're in the wing bags. The pylons are a little bit different because they're very strong. These things, I don't think it's a good idea. So I'm gonna make these removable. And what I've done is, if you feel inside the wing here, there's, I think the main rib or whatever comes all the way down here. So we've got some structure in this forward part, and then we've got structure in this rear part here. So with this off the wing, I'm going to drill 4 holes, 2 on the front, 2 on the back, and that is going to give us our mounting holes. Once those are done and we're lined up properly, then we can put a hole through the wing or into the wing and use a nice small screw to hold these guys on. So easy to install, 4 screws, and if we need to take them off, awesome. If we want to leave them on, we can leave them on. We'll see how things work out. And the other thing we can do is we can put a little bead of shoe goop on there as well too if we decide to leave them on permanent. And those will obviously adhere the center portion and pretty much stick it to the wing anyways. So that's the process. So let's drill our holes first. All right, so you can see our pattern here for drilling. So this is the front, so we've gone end to end. And on this side here, which is the back portion, we went right here because obviously it would be hard to get at if you went right there. So we're using the little Allen key panhead guys. Holes are done here, so you know, they're not super obvious. So if you don't, I mean, if you fly without these things on, you wouldn't even really notice the 2 little holes there. So not a bad thing at all. And it should be pretty easy to get these guys on and off. I did put a little bit of CA in the holes to stiffen things up a little bit, but we don't need to go too crazy on these guys because all it's holding against is the wind. And this is in line, of course, with the airflow over top of the wing. Most of those, I think 2 or 3 of those screws were into the skin. The one I'm doing up right now is into a piece of wood or carbon fiber, so lots of grab there. I think this guy's into a piece of former as well too. There, so with that done up, super solid, nice and solid. So, and of course, if you want to go one step further, you could put that shoe goop underneath there, E6000, but this is definitely strong enough, and I am going to take these off for transportation as well. All right, so fins are done on both wings. See over there, so we're going to leave them on for now, leave the fins on the wings for now, and we're going to pull our wings off to allow easier access inside of everything, because with these wings on, it's kind of hard to get in here and install engine and things like that. So pop the wings off. That's pretty straightforward on the back side of the wheel well openings. Up here is our bolt right there on the forward portion of the wheel openings. So these doors pop down and they're right there. So that's pretty simple. So we'll undo those guys and pull the wings off. All right, so cockpit time. So we got this, the front piece, the dash panel or whatever, installed on the front portion. That's pretty straightforward. It kind of only sits in really one spot. Kind of just tucked it back here as much as possible and kept a little bit on the front carbon lip there and spot glued it with some CA and used some shoe goop to hold it in place. Now I use black, of course, so it's basically hidden. Now the cockpit tub fits just underneath the dash panel. So if we get that lined up, we're basically right on the joint is kind of what we need to think about. So the front of our cockpit is going to come right to this area here. So now just for positioning, I've got our pilot sitting in the cockpit and the seat and everything, and I've got the cockpit in there. And we're going to be roughly about there for positioning. So if we tuck this all the way up like that, so we're up on the back, up on the front, we still have a little bit of clearance on the guy's head. So we want to make sure that we're down a little bit more, I think. So basically from touching in this area, we're going to drop him down about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. So he's going to be sitting right about like that. And that's going to provide a bit of clearance for his head. And I think that's going to work very well. So that's my initial thought with that. So what we'll do now is we'll pull the back cockpit hatch off and we'll install the front and we'll see how he fits against the dash panel here. Now the reason I say that is because when he's sitting in there, we may have to go even lower than we thought, maybe a little bit higher, I'm not sure. So if we take a look at where he's sitting now, okay, so we had it there, and we were going to drop it down a little bit. And if we do that, that gets us pretty good in the wheelhouse. So yeah, that's not too bad. But having this installed is important because this ultimately gives us our spacing for that front portion. So yeah, what I'll probably do is we'll drop the back down just a little bit so we're not touching. Yeah, so it's going to sit something like that. So we kind of have an idea where things are going to be sitting. So now we'll pull these pieces out and we'll figure out our mounting system. All right, so these are the pieces that came with the kit. So we've got this portion here. So that kind of looks like it might be for the back. I don't suspect it would be for the front. It could, but I would suspect it fits better on the back. Or bottom actually. Could also fit like this. So if we were to go like that, that would mean that the guy would tuck in and then our front might engage like that. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. I'm gonna check out some pictures online and see what I can come up with, but yeah, this is our hardware that the kit came with, so let's see what kind of stuff we can figure out. All right, so I'm doing things a little different than some of the online stuff that you can find. So the online stuff shows the cockpit tub getting placed on top of these guys, which doesn't make a lot of sense because the only thing holding this in would be the area around the opening, and you need to be able to move this up and down a little bit to get it off these guys. So I wasn't fond of that. So what I did was I'm planning on putting these guys like this, and then on the front, so you'll tuck in the back side, the front will drop down on the front little hook right there, or nub or whatever, and then we'll drill that and we'll put a pin through there like a C-clip, and that's what's actually going to hold this in place. So this distance is fixed obviously, so it can't come off the back pins, and that's going to be held in place with a clip. Front canopy area comes off, you've got perfect access to this, you pull the pin, and then you move the cockpit forward, tuck and pull it out. So that is, in my opinion, the best way to install it. So next thing to do is find the exact position where we need this to go. Now these guys are not wide enough for spanning the fuselage, so we'll have to make some extra pieces that hold these guys in place. So if you look here, this rear piece is going to sit somewhere about here, and we're like huge amount of space, right? So we need to have a piece that goes all the way across, which is fine because we can get that piece cut and we can get it fit fairly tight where it'll allow us to position this up and down, which is actually probably the best thing because then we can use friction to hold it in place, spot glue it with some CA, and then we'll glue it really nicely with some aero epoxy. And then same thing on the front, that's going to be sitting kind of in this area right here. So I'm kind of getting this, I've got this sort of in the right spot. Now what I'm doing is lining it up like this against the former work of the landing gear, which is right there. And next thing I'm doing is I'm coming to the front here, I'm looking back, and I'm going to line this up this way according to that former that's sitting behind. So I'm lining the top of our structure here that we just put in with the former that's right here behind the main gear. And that'll just ensure that it's nice and level. So when I have my head sitting at the front here and looking down, it looks nice and level across there. So I'll try and give you guys the perspective. So as you look down, you're comparing the top of this with this and just adjusting your head height to make sure that that is sitting level, which it is. So I think we're happy with that location. So I'll take a little bit of CA, spot glue that guy in place, and then we will be able to start working on fitting the front. All right, it's time for another episode of Tip Time, and this tip time is brought to you by Trusty Bent Screwdriver. All right, so when you're doing formal work like this, it's quite important when you don't have structure. Now what I mean by that is our rear fuselage piece or rear support that we tack glued in, the back one for the cockpit, it's got some carbon to go in there, which is totally fine. Now this front one, you can see the mark right there where it's going. Now that is right here on the fuselage on the outside. Now if you take this piece, jam it in place so it's got pressure holding it, spot glue it with CA, and then epoxy it, what happens over time is you'll get a bulge right there. It's not going to be super visible, but when you look down the fuselage, you'll see the bulge where this is. So I basically got this fit exactly where I wanted it to be, and then I made it just a little bit small. So I took it to the sanding block, took 1 millimeter off on each side, and made it a little bit too small. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spot glue that with like a thick or medium drop of CA, and that's going to hold it in place. So when I do this, it's kind of sitting in the right spot. So I'm just going to take a little bit of medium CA, drop it on there, creating a bit of a gap. Now I have sanded this fuselage as well. So we've got some nice surface to epoxy to now as well. So now that's barely hanging on that side. We'll come to this other side. We're in the correct spot. So same thing. Just put a little small bead of CA in there. Now the CA, like I say, is just holding it in place. It's not doing anything for structure. And then when we glue that in place, then it's going to hold everything. So now this is tacked enough where we can do stuff with it, but because we've got that gap between our former work and the skin or the fuselage, that gets filled with epoxy. We don't have any pressure, and it's not going to create a bulge in the side of the fuselage. So that's your tip time for this episode. All right, so I just got the guy put in there just to check the mock-up on everything, and it looks good. I'm happy with the dimensions. I'm happy with where everything is sitting, and I think that is good. So that's good. The last piece, the panel area, really isn't that big of a deal, but that panel will go in there, so that's good. So let's take this apart here and I'll show you what it looks like. So the front pins they're already pulled. This comes forward like that. So we got good room here on the panel. That can come up a little bit, which is fine. So I just have this front area screwed in, so it's just kind of temporarily put there. Back piece comes off like that. Yeah, so that's good. I'll show you guys what I did here. So just again, spot glued that cross member in, Got this guy tucked in, put one screw through the front so I can get this kind of fit and made sure that our height and everything is good, and that looks good. So now we'll put our other screw through there. I'm gonna glue that piece on anyways because it's more of a permanent piece. And then I'm probably gonna add a support front to back, but I think once that's glued in, it might be fine, but we'll probably add a sideways support to prevent this from moving forward and backwards because it needs to be stuck in one spot so it doesn't come off of our pins there, right? So anyways, we'll check and see what kind of reinforcing we need to do, but that is a big step moving forward. And then this panel back here, just like a cover panel, so that'll go in something like that. So we'll put a little bracket on the back, probably of the seat area or the cockpit area, and just use probably just a couple screws going through that or something like that. So want to make this removable so we could at least see in there fairly easy if we need to actually get in there, but that's a pretty minor piece. All right, so we've pulled all the canopy stuff off, undone the front pin, and let's see how this comes in and out. Oh yeah, awesome. That is wonderful. That is good. So that's nice and simple to come in and out. That's great. So now I just need to see if that needs any sort of reinforcing or anything like that, but I don't think it will. Good stuff. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to get our epoxy out and we'll do some high sol work and make sure that this is all strong and done. All right, and got all of our epoxy in there, put some fiberglass reinforcement on the joints on the front one. So there's one on the front, one on the back. So that's all glued. And one other thing I did here was add a support that goes down to the gear structure. Super simple, and that just takes care of all the reinforcement with that rear one. Also printing a battery holder here. So we've pretty much got these guys listed on our website. But this is a bit of a custom one because we're a little bit larger in size. So we can fit three 3-cell LiPo batteries, some 4,000 packs. So that's what is going to power this plane is three 3-cell 4,000 milliamp LiPo batteries. So that's what's going to fit in that tray. It's 5 millimeters wider than our stock 3 battery that we've got listed on the website. Also on the cockpit here, added this back piece. So I just basically glued the little pieces of wood on there, ended up adding some aero epoxy, and then this part just screws down. So this is just a nice little cover for this back area, and there's just 2 nice panhead Phillips screws that blend in with everything right there. So that is the rear portion. And one final parting step tonight was adding this little spacer plate on the wings. Without this spacer, when you tighten these wings down, there's a gap there. And what can happen is you can pull this into the fuselage. So the bolt goes into the fuselage, comes through, and then the more you tighten this guy up, the more it's pulling on the structure right there. And you need to make sure that that doesn't get damaged. So one of the simplest ways to do that is add this spacer plate. So I just laid down a bunch of aero epoxy and have a piece of plywood laid in there, made sure it was flush by going back and forth, put some CA around the edges to lock it in place, and now that aero epoxy underneath in the center is curing, and then we also glued our washer onto our bolts. This is the bolt that holds the wing onto the fuselage. So that's it for tonight. We're going to come back tomorrow. For you guys, it'll be instantaneous, and we'll continue on with the F-100. All right, guys, so it's the next day, and everything is done with our glue and stuff, so we're going to get back to putting our seat in the cockpit tub, but we'll get back to that. So while everything's good here, we've got, just double check everything. We're nice and solid. Everything's glued everywhere, which is great. So I put our tray in here, and just to see how our battery stuff's going to fit in there. So this is the little bit wider battery tray that I printed. So it looks like our standard 3 battery version, but it's just like 5 millimeters wider. So anyways, that's going to go in that type of area right there. And we're going to have battery plugs here. So probably 2 and 1 is how they're going to be organized. So this tray really never needs to come out. I think it's more or less there just so we can, so you can pull this out and be able to access stuff that you put on there. Next thing I'm going to work on is the nose steering. I kind of want to have that done before we start laying everything else out. So yeah, I'm going to start working on that and we'll see how things pan out. Probably end up dropping the gear down so everything's hooked up well, and we'll come back to that in a moment. All right, so front steering is done. It's a very solid setup. There's a little bit of buzz like when you steer side to side because everything's so tight, but it'll loosen up over time, but it's nice and solid and very accurate. So that's done. Basically, we use an aluminum servo arm, a MP Jets clevis, and we have standard CARF clevis on that side, so worked out good. I used a 3mm lock nut as well too, so once this was set up, just tighten that lock nut down. Now the way I set this up is with this pocket opening here, the servo, as long as this arm is loose, the servo arm can turn, hooked it up to the servo, and then just twisted it in place, and then once it was all set up, put the lock nut down. So works good, very solid. So you can see there, moving it. The setup here does have limits on it, so because it's a pin with the fork going through the pin, I mean, it only moves so far, but I think we've got plenty of steering there. The servo maxes out, and then the pin on the steering leg actually pushes out of the little fork. So yeah, that's plenty of steering, so that's good. Yeah, so with that done, we can start getting some of our equipment installed here. And I've already got previously in some of the previous videos, obviously we glued down our mounts for the central box, so that's done, so we can pop the central box in. The reason to get that down and done is so now we can start getting things run to the central box location. I'm going to put our Cortex right here in line with the center line of the aircraft, so that's where that's going to go. Now I did do up these plates, and we've got two different styles. So I've got this exact same plate dimension, but with screws front back and screws side side. So we're going to use the screws front back setup on this one, and it mounts very nicely right there. So we can just screw that down, and it's nice and secure, solid, and isolated, easy access as well. So we have a little bit more of our equipment installed here. We've got our central box bolted down. We've got our Cortex installed. That's all good. We've got the wire kind of moved out of the way and cleaned up. Just working on the plan here as far as how things are going to be laid out. Also ran some wires from the back end. So these are some turbine wires, and those go back to our Chikoi Pro hub, which is right there. And that Pro hub is Velcroed in place with industrial Velcro. We've got the spiral wire going right to the fuel pump. We've got our turbine lead here. Now that's not fastened down. I'm going to clean that up a little bit, but that's wrapped in snakeskin as well too. And we've got our lead that we just looked at from the front here. That is our telemetry and throttle. And then there's a little pigtail coming off here that is marked for the ground support unit. So that is that setup. The only other thing to run there is the power going forward. Laid the turbine in here just so we had kind of a layout of how things are positioned, but we're pretty close to being able just to bolt that in because there's nothing else to run back here. So again, just planning our power layout here, kind of looking at the lighting setup, where things are going to be laid out. So planning all that stuff. I think I'm going to put the lighting controller and the BEC that we're doing for the lighting controller right here. Now the afterburner lights back there, that controller's in the back end. If you remember that, it's sitting around here. And the afterburner lights back here, those are running on 3-cell LiPo. So we're going to pair those up with the turbine battery. And my thinking behind that is, like, when you're starting up, as an example, there's going to be, I mean, the draw on those afterburner lights are pretty small anyways, but for example, the biggest draw on the turbine engine is when you're starting the aircraft. So when you start the aircraft, you trim up, you stick up, stick down, and as the turbine is starting, the afterburner lights are doing nothing. There's no draw there. So the only time it'll be drawing any power is in flight, which the turbine goes from maybe 5 amps on startup down to like 0.5-ish. Obviously it varies depending on throttle setting. So that's in my mind, the best way to power the afterburner lights. The Unilight setup in general is going to run to a BEC from Unilite and then to the lighting controller. We'll go take a look at that. So that's these guys right here. These Unilite BECs are pretty awesome. They come in two different sizes. So there's one, I think, a BEC 8 or 10. It's a smaller unit. I'm not using the smaller one on this one because this is the larger controller. I think it's going to, you know, pull a fair bit of power. And this also has two outputs, one input, which pairs up perfectly because our lighting controller also has two inputs. We could pair those together, but that's what we're going to be going with because we've got lots of high draw lights on this guy. So there's going to be the Unilite lighting controller, and that's going to be positioned right beside the BEC like that. Now, what I do with the Unilite controller is I either snap a picture of the back end here, the back side, or in this case, write it down. And this gives you a good basic layout for the Unilite controller. I'm not a huge fan of using the online programmer. If you go through the different servo travels, so if you're at 0 and then you go to +10, +20, +30, +40 as an example, the layout on all those channels will change. I like to use one of the predefined layouts, and in this case on this aircraft, what we'll be doing is we'll have, let's say, I'm just making up numbers here, but lighting on, we might go from 0 to +50. And then we will have another mix for that channel where when we do gear down, the landing lights will turn on, and that might bring the lighting channel to +80 as an example. And then there'll be a master override where you flick a switch and all of the lights will turn off. So that's the goal with the lighting setup, and that's how we're going to set it up. So I needed to get this stuff figured out so I could figure out where it's going in the aircraft. So this is definitely the planning stage where we're doing a lot of thinking and sorting and figuring things out. So if we put the lighting controller right here, I think our gear controller is going to go on this other side right there, on the opposite side of the central box. And I think that is going to work well. Ultimately, if you need access to any of this stuff, Cockpit's going to come out, which is super easy. Pull the pin. You guys have seen it. The cockpit slides out, no problem. When we take the front canopy portion off here, we can see inside and get to the cortex, no problem, to see the light. Otherwise, we'll just remove the cockpit to access everything else. So that gives us our layout for the batteries. Other thing I was thinking about just now was the gear power. So the gear uses 3-cell LiPo because it's the Electron NG50s or ER50s NG, whatever that is. So that needs 3-cell LiPo as well too. So we'll do like battery 1 from central box. We'll do landing gear. Battery 2 from central box. We'll do the Unilite lighting system. Turbine battery. We'll also do the Unilite afterburner setup. So that's how we're pairing everything up. And that stuff I need to figure out in this stage because that determines where our wires are run. That's why I'm thinking about it. So I'm working on the turbine power just because I'm working from the back forward. So this is the turbine lead that comes with the Chicoy turbine. Clip the XT60 end off and add on to this guy. So we're going to figure out our wire path and how much of the wire we need to add on to this guy, and we'll get the this lead made up and run forward. All right, so a little more progress here. I'll just try and show you guys as many little steps as possible. So we've got our gear controller fastened down, have some wire routing pieces, just trying to plan the wiring directions and everything here. M-speed sensor is installed right there. That runs and goes to our central box to the E3 port right now. And what else? Oh, went through in all of our pins that are holding the various doors and everything and air brake. Those pins, they could work themselves out. So I've taken some goop and installed the goop over top of the tip of the pin. So if that ever needs to be removed, you just peel the goop off and then you'll be able to pull those pins out. So we go through and do that on all the pins everywhere. All right, so I know we're jumping all over the place, but just sporadically moving through this this process. So got our battery tray sorted out here. So I glued all of this stuff down with high sol, and I also spot glued it with some CA, so just around the perimeter of the battery box and the center of all the battery holders. And I will go back afterwards and just touch up the high sol with some black paint just to make it kind of disappear, right? So just gluing things up here. So what I've done is these are our central box batteries. So that'll be battery 1 and 2. So gluing these leads on, Those leads are going to run to the central box. From the central box green MPX plug, so this style of plug here, we'll have another set of wires coming off of each of those batteries. So battery 1 will power the landing gear, battery 2 will power the Unilite setup. But those can all be done once that's in the tray, or we can make these leads afterwards. Now this tray can go in, those leads can be run. The turbine battery, we're going to rest this tray on top of the fuselage, run that wire in. There's going to be excess like this run to that point. So these connectors are available on our website. These are the XT60 angled, black and red, and they work awesome. So these are the screw down ones. I like to glue them down as well too, also with this board, because it's foam board. There's not a lot of structure here, so gluing it down in this case is better in my opinion. And just getting these things ready to solder up. Once they're soldered, you just plug the connector in. There's little holders in here that interlock with the little grooves right there. All right, and we had a special delivery show up today. Thank you, Carlos from CM Jets, for putting this chute together for us so quickly. Obviously, it's for the F100, and absolutely stellar looking. This is the scale chute. We'll throw a picture in here of what this looks like. This is like the finishing touch on this aircraft, so very excited for this. Size-wise, it looks like it's going to fit in that pocket perfectly. So thank you, Carlos at CM Jets. And thumbs up if you're looking for one, you know where to find it. Just to give you guys a shot of what this looks like, I tried to open it up in one of my fans, but it's not enough oomph, so we'll have to wait to see the open view until we have this on the maiden flight, which is coming up pretty quick, but absolutely cool. There it is. That is wicked. So nice. Great job. That is awesome. Very, very cool, that's for sure. That's very impressive, looks great. We'll just fold this guy back up, tuck it away in the box for now, and we'll put this in the aircraft once we get everything plugged in and we've got the ability to open and close the chute door. So anyways, very nice. All right, so getting our battery tray done up here. So battery number 1, which is this guy right here, that feeds the central box, battery 1, and also the gear controller, which is right there. Battery 2, which is that guy, that feeds the central box and the lighting system. So I just am using my little system here. This is the MPX. I don't know what you call it, but anyways, it makes a nice end like this guy. You just inject hot glue in there and it covers everything up. So all right, so rocking and rolling on the F100. Next thing to do is wiring. Now this is where things get a little bit boring, a little bit monotonous. We've printed all of our shrink tube labels for these guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the wiring from all the back end stuff run first. I'm trying to keep this as organized as possible. So we'll have maybe our power leads come down that connector right there, or that holder. All of our servo leads will come down this side, and then they'll just go to their appropriate locations. So trying to keep this exposed but neat. That's the key. Now we still haven't done our wing connectors yet. Now those wing connectors are going to end up right in this area right here. I know I've kind of talked about different locations, but they are basically right behind the anti-rotation pin right there. So they're going to be right in this area, which is just behind the former in front of the air brake. So those will come through. We'll run those afterwards, and not concerned with that stuff at all. So this is going to be a big step to tackle. Well, it's taken a little bit of time, but Little Cinder's finally being accepted by Nez, and Nez is having actually a bunch of fun with her. They've been playing for about an hour now, ripping all over the place, and it's nice to see. So now we got the master pilot and the master navigator. And of course, everybody loves a good box. All right, so it's been 7 hours and we've got a lot of our wiring done. Well, basically all the wiring's complete except the wiring coming from the wings. Everything else is done. That's a big mess right now. We'll clean that up, but I just have been running things and getting them the right length and everything. But we've got our Unilight set up there. So everything has its own channel on the Unilights except the marker lights on the wingtips. That's going to go in number 1. Everything else has an individual channel. We've got our, I'm just showing you all the wiring here, our leads for the drop-down lights. So we put a little bit of shrink tube on those guys, so when they open and close, they don't rub on anything. So here's what it looks like. So it just protects the wire. It's kind of an important thing because after, you know, a couple hundred cycles, it could wear through the wire. So that just keeps the wire in good shape. You can see there we used our keepers for the front gear stuff, so that makes that nice and organized. This stuff's all going to be bundled together. Cortex has the primary lead going into the central box, and the second lead there is just the power wire, and that goes into port 14, which is our gyro sense port. I actually forgot about that, so now I've moved the afterburner lights to port 18, gyro sense port 14, so all of our ports are actually going to be used now, which is good. Yeah, just tried to keep it as nice and neat as possible. Now, one of the things when you're doing the initial startup like this, so we haven't started this plane up in this scenario, right? So, but one of the important things is if, while you're going through the build process and the setup process, if you get things set up while you're installing servos and everything, limits and stuff, it's really kind of a non-event when we go to turn this on for the first time. So I'm going to get my batteries hooked up. We're going to turn this thing on for the first time. Just give it a quick once over, make sure our polarity is good on everything, and that's just going to be pretty uneventful. First thing we'll do is program the gyro. Second thing we'll do is program the second part of the gyro, and then we'll be able to see how everything works out. Yeah, so it should be pretty straightforward. So before I do the first turn on, I'm just looking at things like our tail here. Our horizontal stab is resting on our support, so I'm going to put some more pieces underneath there to lift that tail up a little bit. Our air brake, I'm going to make sure that's in the up position because it won't be able to go out all the way. Nose could retract and go down as needed, that's no problem. And just take a quick gander over all of our polarity for everything plugged in the central box. That stuff's good. Cortex is good. Check our polarities here. On the Unilight, that's all good. We've done that stuff. So yeah, we should be good to turn this on. Let's see what happens. All right, so we don't have our remote switch in there yet, so we're still pulling the bind plug, which is fine. I'm gonna put the gear in the down position, air brakes all the way retracted. I suspect our doors are going to close right away as long as that stuff's all good. We've got a bind plug ready to program the Cortex. So yeah, we should be good. I don't suspect any of the surfaces are actually going to move at first because the Cortex has not been programmed yet, so it won't actually be passing the signal through. All right, so that's unplugged. Doors all close. All right, so Cortex is flashing red. We're going to insert our bind plug. And this is the normal setup process. We've done videos on this before. So it's learned the single receiver setup, which is good. I forgot to lift the tail up, so let's do that. All right, so we're ready to start this up again. This is going to go into Cortex programming mode. So that's where we do our adjustments or stick movements. So we're flashing red, flashing white. Oh. Forgot to move the primary receiver over. So you start off in A, you do the first part, and then you move it to B. That's an important step. Sometimes even I forget. All right, so we're flashing red, flashing white, double bump. So right aileron, left aileron, forward elevator, back elevator, right rudder, left rudder, gyro on off, perfect, bind plug out, and power off. So the buzzing is coming from our drop down servos, so we're going to turn this on again, spend a bit of time just going through things, making sure our servos are not being overdriven, and then we'll come back and take a look at this. All right, and so here is some Unilite / Jetty 101 for you guys. I'm going to show you how I set this mix and everything up. So right now, we've got our lights are on SC right there. So when I flick that on, the lights turn on. So what I've done here is we go into our servo setup, go into the light channel, which is 13. So when we flick this on, I've reduced the travel to 50%. Now the reason I've reduced the travel to 50% is all of our lights are on except the landing lights right there. Now they're down, but the lights aren't on. Now if we take that travel and we go up, the landing lights turn on. So right now, I'm going to keep this channel at 50%. So our lights are on, our lights are off. So what I want to do is I want to create a situation where we need to have our gear in the down position, our lights on for those landing lights to turn on. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into Advanced Properties, Logical Switches, and we are going to create a new logical switch, and we're just going to call it gear, let's call it landing lights. Okay, so we've called it landing light. We're going to enable that. So first control is this switch, our lighting switch, our master lighting switch needs to be on. Second control, our gear needs to be in the down position. So with our lights on, our gear in the down position, this logical switch is active. We're going to change that to and. So this and that needs to be met. So that's good. Now what we'll do is we're going to go into, turn those lights off because they are bright. We're going to go into our mix. So fine tuning, free mix, lights. So gear to lights, we're going to edit this one. And our switch is going to be our logical switch that we just set up right here. So this is met. Okay, and that is going to add 50%. Lights, 50%, minus 100. Okay, so we're not getting what we need out of that, so it's something in our mix. All right, so I needed to have this, I had it switched to constant, it needs to be a curve. So now, when we turn the lights on and our gear is in the down position, this is all working. So I'll show you here. So right now the landing lights are on, lights off, lights on, all the lights are on. If we do gear up, landing lights turn off. But all of our other lights stay on. So that is the setup we were looking for. So all of our Unilights are doing well. That's the lighting setup. So yeah, that's awesome. All right, so with our first startup under our belt, it's time to get our wing wiring completed to be able to plug in our wings. But with that, we're gonna call it quits on video number 8 of the Composite ARF F100 build series. And if build hurts your feelings, then you can call it the assembly series. Thanks guys for watching. If you are not subscribed to the channel, check down below. I encourage you to hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of our new videos coming out. We got some really cool maiden videos coming up of the F100, the F15 as well too. So encourage you guys to hit that thumbs up button as well, the like button, but hit that subscribe button. Also, when you hit that subscribe button, it's a good idea to make sure you have notifications turned on so you get notified when we release new videos. So last video is going to be wrapping up this beautiful aircraft. We are going to finish up all of our detail work, do our test runs, center of gravity check, and the build will be complete. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you channel members for supporting the channel, and thank you everybody for watching the videos. If you're curious what channel membership is, there's some links down below to channel membership. It's a paid thing, but channel members get to see our videos early. So check that out, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Very excited to see everybody at Turbines and Tumbleweeds in Sweetwater, Texas, October 2nd to October 5th, 2025. See you there.